Hello, everybody. This is Bruce from Oregon. It's the Bruce from Oregon Show. This is episode 0. It might be the first, it might be the last. Who knows? Today, it's a fine Tuesday. We're doing another episode in our Management Best Known Practices playlist series. Okay? We have a library now of about a dozen different video topics in the Management Best Known Practices series that you can check out in the playlist. If you've enjoyed this series, if you enjoy these videos, there's a link to buy me a coffee in the description, or you can become a channel member and support the channel that way. All right. So today the topic is performance equals results minus expectations. Okay, what does this mean? This is something I heard once when I was not the newest employee, but also not the most senior employee. And a more senior employee, the lead architect for the chip we were designing at work, turned me on to this phrase. So thank you to Eric for doing that. In any case, here's what happened on that project. So we were working on a chip that we were designing. So let's call this the N+1 chip, because we had done a previous chip that we had used and sold as a standalone product, sold it to our usual customers, and product N was fairly successful. So it was time to do project N+1, do an update with new features and upgrades, right, in this new chip. And for project N+1, we had a plan. And on paper, Project N+1 looks better than Project N because it has some new features, keeping up with the times, higher speed operation, all that jazz. And so to us, working on the project inside the company, Project N+1 looked way better than Project N. Now, at the time, we had just developed a relationship and had acquired a new customer, a very high-profile customer. And this customer was going to use, or was evaluating using, our new Project N+1 chip. Okay. And here's what happened. They looked at our specifications and said, well, it's okay, but it's not, we're not that happy. And so why did this happen? Why did it happen such that when we looked at it from our side, going from N to N+1, we thought it was great. The new customer looked at it and they said, well, it's not the best. And the problem was they were coming from their own previous product that they had developed themselves. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to use our product as their next generation product instead of spending all the time and effort to make their own. Okay. And this would help them get to market faster and all this jazz. So the problem was they were comparing our next product to their own product, whereas what we had been doing is comparing our next product to our own previous product. So we had a different set of expectations when looking at the new project, even though the new project we were both looking at is exactly the same. So the idea here is that at the end of the day, the performance or your final assessment of something, and this could go beyond product development, this could go towards the management technique of, understanding what your employees are capable of, seeing what your employee performance is, what is your team's performance, what is your performance to project milestones like schedule or budget. It could apply to all sorts of concepts. So I think this idea that we're talking about today is applicable all over the place. And it's just something good to have in the back of your mind. But in essence, the overall performance you end up with, or your overall conclusion about how something went, is basically equal to the results you actually achieved quantitatively, or it could be qualitative, but in general, what were the actual results that everyone agrees were achieved, minus the expectations. And these expectations could be subjective or they could be objective. So, for example, if I thought I needed to, if I'm closing bugs and my expectation is that I can close 5 bugs in a quarter, and I close 7 and 7 is the results, then the performance is exceeding the expectations quantitatively. And then, qualitatively, sometimes these things can be like, how did we handle conflict? How did we approach problems that came up? Were we adaptable? There can be qualitative elements to this too, in terms of expectations and results, or they can be quantitative. So it's important to know when you can be quantitative and measure something and when you can't, and acknowledge that publicly as a manager or a leader. So it's very clear you're not just sort of wishy-washy, subjectively looking at everything. If something is quantitative, keep it quantitative, okay? Because employees will appreciate that. So the idea here is that depending on different, in the example I gave at work, we had different expectations from these two companies, the internal company and the external company. We had the exact same results that we were going to achieve. And therefore, based on the math, we had different performance outcomes. We thought our project N+1 was going to be amazing, and they thought it was just going to be kind of mediocre. So that's how you get to what they say here, true performance. And this could be, they say somebody, it could be on a personal basis, it could be on a team basis or a project basis, it could be anything. But this is a tool, this is some math you can use as a manager in order to have a good framework, have good communication with people who might be inside your team, or, like the example I had, customers outside of your company. And I think in explaining some of those things, like, hey, look, here's your project N-1, here's our project N-1, they were able to sort of understand and maybe lower their expectations a little bit because we were able to offer other benefits like product compatibility and schedule and things like this that were good for them, for the customer. So that's what's going on here. Now, this is very interesting because they say there are key points about this concept. So let's look at those for a minute. And one of the interesting ones here, they call it the Pygmalion effect. Okay, and it says this concept is closely linked to the psychological phenomenon known as the Pygmalion effect, which states that high expectations can lead to improved performance. So this is where we start to get into the management aspect, okay? Because what I was doing with the example I gave previously was sort of using this math and using this concept to understand or characterize where people are coming from, or to help set expectations, or to understand people's expectations within and across the team. What the Pygmalion effect is doing is it's saying, looking forward into the future now, what can we do to achieve higher performance or higher efficiency from a team or from a project? And what they're stating here in this Pygmalion effect, if I can find my mouse, high expectations can lead to improved performance, while low expectations can lead to decreased performance. So this is interesting. Now, if we go look at this in more detail, we'll come back to the other items in this list, but I just had to search this Pygmalion effect. They say the Pygmalion effect is a psychological phenomenon that describes how expectations can impact performance. It states that when people have high expectations placed on them, they tend to perform better. Low expectations lead to worse performance. Okay, so as a manager, what you want to do, and this gets into the topic of measurable objectives, quarterly objectives, key objectives, that we'll have a separate video on. But in general, what you want to do is you want to set goals that are very aggressive, okay? And you want to, as a manager, consciously know that you have set goals that are very aggressive, okay? Because on one hand, this Pygmalion effect is going to be like, okay, we set a bunch of goals and they're all very aggressive. And the team is going to do their best to achieve those goals once they know what they are. Now, the other side of the coin from that is if you're setting aggressive goals, it's far more likely that you won't perfectly achieve those goals. Like if you say, hey, we have to put on the books, $1 million in sales this quarter. You may only do half of that realistically, okay? It may be an amazing goal. That's where you want to get to. You want to get to $1 million a quarter. But right now you're at $500,000. So you're only at half of your goal. And it's fine to set that really high expectation goal. The thing you have to do as a manager that goes beyond just this Pygmalion effect is you have to consciously understand that your goal is very aggressive and not punish your employees or behave negatively with your employees when at the end of the quarter you don't meet that goal. Okay. You have to consciously accept that you are setting an aggressive goal and measure over time to see progress towards that goal, because the progress towards that goal with what we call quick wins or small things you can measure that you can do successfully and see that you're making progress, that is going to be what is psychologically important as part of this process of getting to the high expectation goal and having that goal there so that you can take advantage of this Pygmalion effect. Okay. And they give some examples here. They say the Pygmalion effect works because people tend to internalize the labels others place on them and try to conform to them. That's right. So, if you have a team where maybe a manager is promoted and you need to find a new first level manager, if you've been treating somebody as a team lead or giving them the title of team lead, that may naturally move them into the management title. People may be ready to go. People may think they're not ready to do something. And if you can give them either the labels or the actual work or show them the evidence that they are ready to do that, that can help. Because it's sort of like the flip side of the coin of dress for the job you want or fake it till you make it. I mean, you're not really faking it, you're working hard. Try it till you make it is probably better. And so this is sort of the flip side. So what can you as a manager do to help enable your employees to dress for the job they want? What can you do as a manager to help your employees try it until they make it? Fake it until they make it, I guess. I mean, not really faking it. You got to do some work. But that's the idea. So they say in academia, teachers' expectations can have a strong effect on students' performance. Students who are treated as if they are capable of success tend to do better. Yeah, and what you want to do is you want to treat people, you want to come in with the sort of intuition or the base expectation that, hey, yeah, we can do these things. You want to be optimistic. Now, when those things don't work out, like I said before, you don't want to get overly negative, okay? You want to praise your team publicly, and if you need to do any criticism or if there's any negativity, you want to have that happen privately. Maybe it's between you and your next level manager to discuss things that aren't going well or whatever. Or if you have to have a difficult conversation with an employee, do that privately rather than publicly. Okay, and then at work, managers who have high expectations for their subordinates can help them perform better and advance in their careers. Yeah. So again, like I said, when we have these aggressive goals that we've set, what we can do is we can coach, mentor, manage on a regular basis so that we can help people perform better. We don't want to micromanage every little nitpicking detail, but we want to be there for the sort of emotional or psychological support that the employees or the teams are going to need. Okay. So, for example, sometimes it's easier to get something done if you just know somebody else is around, like somebody that you can have as a backup. For example, if I'm playing a competitive video game and I'm playing with my friends on a team, I know that I have my friends there as the backup, as opposed to if those people were strangers. I might not feel as confident in my abilities in the competitive video game playing with strangers compared to playing with my friends. Okay. So it's a very similar thing. I mean, you don't have to be your employee's friend, but you just have to be there for the knowledge and trust that if you need to mentor, if you need to coach, if you need to manage, you are ready to do that. Okay, research. When researchers have high expectations for patients in a treatment group, those patients may have better outcomes than the control group. So that's interesting. So it's just another example of the same effect. We can go back to the original thing here. We covered this Pygmalion effect a little bit. We'll get into it a little bit more with another example. But let's finish off this list here. This is the importance of clear expectations. For this calculation to be accurate, it's crucial to have clearly defined and communicated expectations regarding what constitutes good performance in a given situation. Yeah. So whether something is qualitative or quantitative, the most important thing you can do as a manager with your team is what I call defining success. So define the definition of success and communicate the definition of success with your team so they know what it is way up front. Because if employees don't know what the definition of success is, they're not going to achieve it, or you're just sort of leaving it up to random luck whether they achieve it or not. I mean, if we have some project and I think that doing A, B, and C will make project successful, but my employee thinks doing C, D, and E is what's needed to be successful. Well, now we have a difference of opinion, or we have, a miscommunication. And eliminating these miscommunications is just huge. It's huge for a manager or a leader in any situation to define success. And if you can do it quantitatively, that's even better. But even if it's qualitative, maybe there's a customer satisfaction survey and you just want, maybe they just fill out comments or something and you just want qualitatively good comments. That's important to you as a manager. You have to tell your employees this. You have to be very clear. So this is critical here. And then they say beyond just numbers. Okay, well, often used in quantitative context, performance can also include quantitative aspects like attitude, teamwork, and communication. Yeah. So this is just getting at what I was just saying with like the survey results. If you have a team, you want good communication between you and your employees as a manager, but you also want your employees to have good communication within the team and outside of the team, because there are often stakeholders that your employees will work with outside of the direct team. And you want to have good attitudes, good teamwork, good communication in those vectors. And those are things that are hard to measure. Sometimes you have to go solicit feedback as a manager. You have to say, well, I'm on team A and my team works very closely with team B. So I'm just going to ask some people in team B how they think my team is doing in terms of teamwork and get some feedback. And it could be very qualitative. They could say, we work with Jim every week and Jim is great. We wish there were two Jims because Jim is so good. I don't know. They'll give you some feedback. Or it may not be great feedback. They may say something like, oh, Nick is just, he's a little tough to work with because he's very demanding and he doesn't view our teamwork as a two-way street. And he just sends these emails that are a little terse. You may get feedback like that. And then you have to start doing some coaching and some management and some mentoring with Nick in that case. Okay, so either way, it's going to let you move forward as a manager and have some information that can help you make your team better over time. And that's the idea. And they give you some little examples here. I think it's pretty straightforward, right? Like, oh, we got to close, we want to close 10 deals. We closed 15 deals, so we're 5 deals above expectations. I mean, this is not complicated math. It's very fine. So that's that. Now, one of these things in the Pygmalion effect, so we've got the Pygmalion effect here on Wikipedia. You can go look at it. I think we already talked about it a little bit. And I think what I really wanted to look at this other specific example. So this is the Rosenthal-Jacobson study. So I just want to look at this before we're done for the day. Because we're already, oh my gosh, guys, we're 20 minutes. I always think these are going to be like a 5-minute video and then we do 20 minutes. But that's how it is. We're here. But this is the last example. Oh my gosh, there are squares. Okay, so this was a study by Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson. And they showed that children's performance was enhanced if teachers were led to expect enhanced performance from children. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit before. But this is where this comes from. By the same token, if teachers were led to expect lower performance from children, the children's performance would be diminished. Okay. The authors purported the study results supported the hypothesis that performance can be positively or negatively influenced by the expectations of others. Exactly. This phenomenon is called the observer expectancy effect. Let me give you another example. Remember at the very beginning, I was talking about Project N plus 1. This was a new chip we were building compared to the previous project, Chip N. Now, our original spec sheet for Project N plus 1 was nice, and there was a part of it that was going to operate at a particular speed. And in this case, higher speed is better than lower speed. Now, one thing that happened was once we had this new customer, the new customer was very interested in challenging us to see if we could get that speed to a higher level. And of course, before that customer even showed up, everybody was like, well, this is the speed we can get to within our technological capabilities and our schedule and the laws of physics and all of these things. Now, obviously, we can't violate the laws of physics, but we can improve technology over time. And we can, find ways to do things better in the same schedule denominator of time. And this is what we did. We actually got our original speed for this part from one number to a higher number. And it was really because this customer challenged us. It was almost like they gave us, a challenge, like a goal to hit that we couldn't set ourselves because we were too, I guess, maybe inward looking or too, on an evolutionary path instead of a revolutionary path. And, that challenge motivated, I can specifically remember this in my mind. There was a specific engineer who figured out a new way to do something. And I think if that engineer hadn't been given the challenge, they wouldn't have spent the time coming up with this new process, this new methodology to ensure that we could operate at this higher speed. Okay. And sometimes that's what it takes. You have to have some aggressive goals. Let's build a spaceship and get to the moon. Can we do it? I don't know. We're going to try. And then once you know that that's your goal, people will unlock new capabilities. People will solve problems that were never solved before because oftentimes innovation happens, necessity is the mother of invention, right? That's the quote. And I think it's kind of true. Like if you have a problem that you can't solve any other way, someone is likely to find a way to solve it. As long as you're not, relying on violating the rules of physics or something like that. So anyway, these guys did that study, and I think it was pretty interesting. You can read up on it yourself here. And then they had another example here about mediator leadership behavior. And I think this is another example you can read about that I think is very interesting in terms of this gets more into, instead of just being the teacher teaching the children, it's more about management style and running a company and these type of things. Instructors, maybe at the corporate level. So they have other examples here as well on this page that I think you should check out if you're interested in this topic and learning more. All right. So again, to summarize, I think it's really important for managers and leaders to have this concept, this math in the back of their minds at all times. Performance is results minus expectations. What does it mean? And how can you apply this context to whatever it is you work on specifically and make better use of it by being clear about expectations, by giving your employees aggressive goals, but coaching and mentoring them in a positive way so that they can increase their efficiency and achieve those goals and improve the team's performance. Okay. So I think that's all I wanted to cover today. If you have topics you want me to cover in the domain of management, leadership, working in tech, anything like that, just let me know in the comments section. Again, if you appreciate these videos, you can buy me a coffee. The link in the description. You can become a member of the channel and support the channel that way. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next week and in between with all sorts of other strange videos, the kinds I like to do. Who knows? Who knows where it will go, guys? I got a van outside. I can get in the van and go wherever I want right now. Oh my gosh. The world is our oyster, guys. Let's go. All right. If you've made it this far, thanks so much. I'm Bruce from Oregon. This is the Bruce from Oregon Show. Have a good one.